the whole idea is that you take the assessment, you do a team map, you're able to connect with each other, and you're able to see where are those things. Oh, that explains why you and I have frustration together, why we have internal conflict, right? Because you think, oh, I see things the same way you do, or you see things. We always think that. We think everybody sees it the way we do, and then this explains why, like, oh, we're having conflict. Oh, and it's in that spot because we have a team map. It says I have high galvanizing, you have as a frustration. So you think I am on crack or something all the time, or like speed. You know, like I'm too excitable for you, and like it makes sense why you don't get me, and I think you're boring, and so we're like, we just don't see eye to eye. Or let's say you have high discernment and the other person has high invention, and you have the opposite in terms of one genius, one first. So it's the one that's next to it is the big thing to understand with self-awareness. Because if I have invention and you have discernment and we both have the opposite as a frustration, well, what happens? If I know that and I have self-awareness, I'm like, oh, I'm going to naturally jump over discernment because it's a blind spot, right? It's a blind spot. I'm going to jump over it. If I jump over it, that pisses you off because you're like, hey, I can evaluate these ideas and I see clearly how to make it better, right? And so when you know that, and that's been so helpful for me, is I have the sixth, and these are the phases of the steps of work. We have to go through each one. You skip any, and you're going to cause issues for your team. You build that self-awareness as a team, and now everybody is holding each other accountable to saying, did we go through discernment? Did we evaluate that project step we were going to take, right? So that's how it works, is like it builds that self-awareness. So the person who fills in your gaps, you're actively leveraging them. And you know what happens there? That person gets energy and fulfillment because of being able to tap into their strengths. So you're actually filling their cup, their like motivation cup, their ability to have energy for the rest of their work. So that's a micro habit right there. It's like, where am I at in the workflow? Oh, I'm in invention because I want to naturally go to invention because I'm an inventor. Okay, I've got the general framework of an idea. Ooh, I need to bounce it off someone who has at least a competency in discernment, right? And so that's a habit. It's like, I have an idea. I don't just keep going with my own ideas and then move forward. I say, who am I going to bounce it off of? Because I don't see my own ideas as well as you, right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. That makes perfect sense. Now, I want us to move the direction a little bit different. I loved how you said that there are 3 stages, while people understood there were 2, and then there was this middle second stage that no one was aware of. I found that fascinating. So let us circle back to that and tell us about what are the 2 stages that people are aware of, and then this middle stage why people lose sight of. It's something that can help people.
Yeah. So within Working Genius, you've got these 6 gears, and each of the gears, right, plays off the other ones. And so in each of the stage, you've got a responsive genius, which is basically the person who's more likely to inquire and ask questions with wonder. And then you've got the disruptive genius, which is, advocate and push their ideas. So you have this yin and the yang of a balance within all 3 stages of work. So you need both. So it's like a balance here, balance here, balance here. So you've got these 3 stages. What would happen usually is you'd have Nike's a great example of this. They used to have issues with their key shoes because they would have this philosophy of, we come up with the model for the shoe and we throw it against the wall and we see if it sticks, and then we move up, we do it again. And they would have big losses because of that. And so what this showed is like, so we make the general prototype for the most part, but now we move it through a filtering process in that second stage of both making sure that we're not is this the right shoe in this moment? Are we going to market this correctly? Is this do we have the right team compiled? Are we missing any risks of launching this right now? Like, you get into all of those questions in that filtering process, which that's what usually gets skipped, because the ideators, the inventors, they just go, oh yeah, we got it, let's go. Cause they're a driver, they're an advocate. So they're like, let's go. And if we don't know who that middle stage people are, who's the discernment people? Okay, we need to run it through that filter. Who's our galvanizers? They're going to get everybody mobilized and excited about and on board about this new shoe, then
Gotcha.
you miss things and you don't get energy. So
Mm,
it's the clear decision and the push forward to launch it. So you get this thud of the implementers not being fully bought in and excited, inspired, and you have some things missed that could have been evaluated more, and done that. So
gotcha.
there's two ways to look at this, and within that middle stage, there's
Hmm.
the there's a that planning process that we need to focus on. Then there's also the idea of that this moves it faster. So you shouldn't get stuck in planning. Planning needs to be quick and efficient. And that's what the
Hmm.
discernment person does. It actually ramps up the planning process so much faster because they cut through to what's true at a rate that other people might miss things. Because we need to get from planning into action, prototype it, and then go back and evaluate, review, and make it better, right? Get that continuous
Hmm.
improvement cycle going. And that's what Working Genius does, because you get through the beginning stage of ideation, you evaluate and filter it really quickly. You get everybody, whoever's going to be involved, on board. The folks who are down on the bottom half, the implementation side, they are
Hmm.
really good at jumping on board and executing really fast. So if you put people in the right seats, if you align roles, if we have a circle,
Uh-huh.
and this is a continuous improvement, that's what micro habits also do, is it helps you develop a continuous improvement cycle. And so when you have that, you have the ideation, which is going to take the longest, which is the brainstorming. So you have the people in those
Hmm.
brainstorm meetings where they love spending time and just whiteboard it. But you launch through the strategy, the planning process fast. And then you put people in the right seats on the bus, where like those executors, they are so quick and fast and efficient, but you create a quicker timeline. So you shorten it, so it's not planning for a month. It's like, let's plan for quickly. Let's have a prototype. Let's get back to review feedback, so that
Gotcha.
you keep improving. Because a lot of companies, they don't have that fifth type of meeting of review feedback, and you're
Hmm.
missing wonder and discernment in particular, because that's where they thrive, is in like the
Right.
review meetings and the feedback meetings, and how we see where we're at and we filter and we make it better.
I think a lot of it is driven by the sunk cost fallacy, where I've already invested so much in planning and strategy. I must get the product to work. I must sell it. I need to do brute force, get it out there. But what's happening is you learn much later in time and in sunk money that it was dead on arrival, or it wasn't a good product, or the market did not need it or want it. This allows you to fail faster and
Yes.
find out what will actually move forward. Is that right?
Yeah. Have you heard of like uh little little bets? It's Peter
Yeah.
Sim's book.
I've
Yeah, I
heard
mean
of it.
that
Yeah.
so it's that, and like essentialism is another book that talks about the sunk costs fallacy. So
Hmm.
both those things play into this, where the sunk costs, like, would you actually continue if you just started now, if you hadn't caught that money? And that's actually like basically what happens to everybody when wonder and invention,
Hmm.
when they spend a ton. This happens to me all the time. I spend a ton of time creating
Hmm.
something, and I wait until later to actually discern it.
Hmm.
And I've spent all that time. Now I'm invested emotionally and financially into that idea. So I don't want to go back, even though if I looked at it this moment, I probably would. And so that's where that starting sooner, like you brainstorm some, bring in discernment to evaluate earlier, because then that sunk cost fallacy goes away, because you're not
Hmm.
so deep into it that you don't want to go back.
I think that was the golden nugget that executives, if they're watching and listening, you want to really save money, you
Yeah.
really want to multiply your revenue. This is how productivity actually comes to life. This is how you maximize it, because of identifying the six different gears, the three different stages, and how that, contrary to belief, it actually speeds up the process. Right?
Yes.
Beautiful,
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful. I want to cover a few other things here.
Yeah.
You shared an amazing document, which we're going to hand it out to people later. We talked about micro habits to overcome, multitasking versus deep focus. Then there's the relax, reframe, right focus. Um, I'm more curious right now about simplifying or hacking your frustrations. Can you kind of take us on that?
Sure. Yeah. Couple things with that, like the Pomodoro technique, which this is a
Mm-hmm.
Pomodoro, that can be really, really helpful because it'll focus you in around your frustrations and just taking that away internal and external distractions. But in
Mm,
particular, most of us with our frustrations or things that we have to get done, we see it as like, I have to climb that mountain, you know,
mm,
whatever it feels daunting because
mm,
frustrations will feel daunting. And so, but and then we launch it, we think, oh, just motivation, and if I'm just grit and motivation, I will 100% be able to do this. and
mm,
and we think that's all we need, but in reality it's actually our habits and creating systems. This is what James Clear, BJ Fogg, a bunch of other
right.
guys focus
Uh-huh.
on within like Atomic Habits.
Right.
That no, it's actually the most disciplined and habit filled people who seem like they're just so motivated. It's like, no, they create an
Mm,
environment where they could get through those frustrations. So some of the ways you do that, reduce decision fatigue. So have set times when you have the most energy to work on your frustrations. We put those things off all the time.
mhm,
So you want to not put those off, put them at your highest. Like, this is what I start with. So that's number one. Another one is, self-awareness around knowing what are those pain points and blind spots within
mhm.
your workflow. If you don't know what those are, you won't even know why you're putting those things off, right?
Or what, why you're upset or angry for that matter.
Yes, because
Yeah.
it'll actually slowly decrease your motivation and your stress will go higher, but you won't know why because
Mm,
it's a slow process. I've seen that over and over with burnt out executives in their
mhm.
50s and 40s where they got there and they're like, I don't know why I'm here. And then you realize, oh, tenacity is actually one of your frustrations, but you got really, really good at it. And so
Mhm.
they kept giving you more work in kind of admin operations, and you were slowly leaking
Hey,
oil.
Justin, double down on that. You got good at your frustration and they kept giving you more. That
Yes,
is mind-boggling. It happens all the time, but we don't
all
even
the time.
realize that it's happening to us. Can you do a double take on that, please?
Yeah. Um, so there's things called low competencies,
Uh-huh.
and there's also things called frustrations.
Okay.
So your low competency or frustrations are where those areas that, if especially if you're a high cognitive person, which most executives, you've mastered things, you have amazing abilities, you've gotten degrees, all the stuff, right? So
Uh-huh.
low comps are things that you are really, really good at. Everybody else knows you're really good at. It's actually happened to me and also Patrick Lencioni.
Mm.
But because you're so good at it, and maybe nobody else on your team has those abilities,
Mm-hmm.
they keep keeping more of that on you. And so for the first while, it's like you're carrying a rock and it's fine, it's not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
But they keep giving you more and more little rocks. And as you're walking up, trying to get up this mountain, like every time they add another rock on you, it's like survivor
Right.
challenges. Like they add more and more rocks. I'm a big survivor nut. They add
I
more and
see.
more rocks on you, and you're having to walk up the mountain, and you don't realize like every one of those little rocks doesn't feel that heavy, but
Mm-hmm.
the accumulative nature of it over a number
Right.
of years starts to just get to the point where you buckle, and
Uh-huh.
it will be like one little rock that causes you to buckle. it's not
Right.
it's not
Right.
any one, it's all of them accumulating, and that's basically what
Right.
happens with those low competencies and frustration, because they are so competent that it actually is what destroys them because they're
Yeah.
so good at what they do.